one of my earliest adventures into building is this chimney stack that's on the roof here that I built when I was about 17 years old. It's actually where I used to live, on my mum and dad's house, you know. We had a chimney stack with about 4 pots on, and of course there were only one of them used for the water system, you know, the back boiler and the hot water in the taps. The other 3 sort of let water run down the walls in the bedrooms of next door and in our bedrooms on our side. So I decided that I would take it down and build a nice chimney stack. And it didn't really have any design, I had no drawings, you know, I just kept altering it in shape and size as it went up. And this is about 40 odd years ago, maybe more than that. And the people who live there now wanted to actually dismantle it and take it down, but the council put a preservation order on it. And the thing still looks nearly as good as the day that I built it. I'm quite proud of it, really. Really, ever since I were a little lad, you know, I've been interested in buildings and building techniques and all the skills that went into building a house, you know. I mean, even way back into the Middle Ages, you know, all the different tools and the different joints, the different ways they had of sticking things together, you know, soldering lead and all sorts of exciting things. E02 Moat is one of the oldest and loveliest medieval manor houses in all of England. It's stood here for 650 years, almost unchanged. The moat surrounds all 4 wings of the house, and all of the walls drop straight down into its waters. Within these 4 wings, there's a lovely open courtyard, and when you first look at it, the house looks as though it was all built at the same time, but it's actually the product of 6 centuries of development. Peter Leach is an architect and archaeologist who has been responsible for much of the conservation work here.
I think standing in the courtyard, it does demonstrate how E02 Moat as a house has just developed over the years, and people adding bits to it from time to time, and always obviously loving the house.
What makes E02 Moat very interesting at the moment is the restoration work that's being done here. The work will be going on until at least 2002, and it gives a very good opportunity to find out how a medieval house was built and to look at the materials that were used in its construction.
Well, this is the roof of the Great Hall, Fred.
Yeah.
And you can see the stone rubble end wall here. On top of it, there are the tops of rafters,
yeah,
and the lathing,
yeah.
And then, of course, on that top of that are the tiles, peg tiles.
Yeah.
They're not nailed, but they have holes in which you put wooden pegs.
Yeah.
And there's also quite a lot of straw in that. I'm wondering if that was put in for some kind of insulation, for heat insulation. Put in for the new tiling.
Well, they can keep the original timbers, they are doing, but down in this valley the great beam was so rotten that they're having to put a brand new one in.
This, Fred, is the roof plate or beam that was under the valley gutter when we saw it up on the roof.
It must have leaked a bit.
They didn't keep the gutters clear, of course. That's why it's rotted so badly. But this timber only dates from 1605 or 1610.
It's amazing, really, because you think of an oak tree as being like the centre being fairly hard and the sapwood being the softest, don't you? And yet the outer edges of it have survived pretty well, haven't they?
Yes.
An house like this has stood up to the elements for centuries. So how did they manage to build things that lasted for so long? The materials they used must have been pretty good, and until they had all the things that modern builders have, they had to use whatever materials were to hand. Sometimes crude, but effective. You want me to go in the cow muck?
That's right, yeah.
No, it's what, approximately half of that full of...
that is the sifted cow dung.
Yeah, it's nice stuff,
dung.
Is it?
That's it.
Yeah.
You can tell.
A nice measure. Yeah. Oh, that's rich, isn't it?
I was collecting this 7 o'clock this morning.
Yeah, so it's fresh.
With our local dairy herd.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, it takes a bit of mixing, doesn't it?
Yeah,
it's not, it isn't sort of easy to shove about.
That's been milled beforehand with the hair put in it.
What's the idea of the cow dung, like?
Right, well, it does give it more elasticity, you know, with when you're spreading it. It also hardens. I would say he's done that before myself.
No, I mixed a bit of mortar in my time.
Yeah.
Never with any cow muck in it.
Can't wait to smear that on the wall.
Yeah.
Nice bit of stuff.
It's a nice colour, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's lime, hair, goat hair, with sharp sand. Well, you try yourself and see how you get on with that.
I'll have a go.
Have a go.
Right. You want me to continue in a downward direction?
Yeah, it'd be nice.
Oh, bloody hell.
Let me put less on the hook, perhaps.
Yeah.
That's it. Push it well in, because it has to go through the lard to key.
Yeah. That's all right.
A lot more skillful like that. But that's all right, come on. Now that's going to be there 800 years.
Yeah.
So it's good to think that we do something that's going to stand a test of time, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think that's enough for me.
That's great. Any time you want a job with me.
Yeah, it does have a tendency to stick to the floor, doesn't it? Like the proverbial what's it to the blanket,
Well,
isn't
that's right. We keep it damp, in fact. We spray it to keep it damp so it doesn't dry too quickly.
Yeah.
Because it will craze.
Crack. Yeah.
So, and that's why we key as well, because, you know, that helps to stop the shrinkage.
Definitely has the smell of the countryside.
That's right, well...
Lath and plaster was fine for the house of a country squire in rural Kent, but I'm on my way now to see a palace that was built to entertain a king. Hampton Court had to be built of something that looked more substantial, but again it came down to the availability of local materials. So Hampton Court was built of brick. Height and Moult is quite a modest place, but at the other end of the scale, Hampton Court is the biggest and most splendid Tudor palace in all of England. The palace was begun in 1515 by Henry VIII's chief minister, Cardinal Wolsey, and this central gateway is part of his original palace. It's a bit strange how history goes, you see, because Henry gave his best minister, Cardinal Wolsey, permission to do some lodgings for him and build himself an house, but because he couldn't fix it up with the Pope about his divorce, they kicked him out and carried on building himself, and of course that's what you can see over there today, or most of it. Jonathan Foyle is the assistant curator for historic buildings, and he knows all about how it was built. Well, anyway, Jonathan, tell me, which is the bit that Cardinal Wolsey did?
Well, he took it over in 1514 when he wasn't yet a cardinal.
Yeah,
and
sorry about that. I've never been very good on history.
No, don't worry, because he's on the cusp of that of that career.
Yeah.
But he took over a medieval manor house of the Knights Hospitallers, and some parts are buried away in there. But what we see now is the best surviving example of Wolsey's domestic architecture, at least. And so he transformed this into a bishop's palace.
Yeah.
And one suitable then for a cardinal as he developed it gradually, and one suitable for accommodating the royal family. So the whole of this breadth between the two gables to either side of the gatehouse is his.
And then the other bit's Henry's, is it?
They're additions by Henry.
When he fell out with him.
Even before Wolsey fell, Henry took the house over. He couldn't wait to get him. These rooms were Wolsey's, Fred, probably built in the late 1520s when he needed to retire away from the king and queen. He got himself in deep water by that stage. And so from here he could look to the hall in that direction and the gardens in that direction. And he may well have warmed his hands at this fire, because that's an original feature.
Yeah, the ceiling's quite interesting, isn't it?
It is,
like, I know the background's plaster, but the ornamental bit, you know, is a bit different. What's that made of?
It is. Well, they're all moulded timber ribs. And each one's got a groove running the length of it, in which is slipped a length of leather mache. So that's wet, pounded, stamped leather, which is gilded in the fashionable style of the day with arabesques. and then gilded lead leaves.
Yeah, the
pinned on
bosses
top of the junction.
Yeah. Lots of lovely old panelling.
Yes, there is. This is quite plain as panelling goes, of course.
Yeah.
What you'd expect in the 16th century is much more the linen fold pattern.
Stuff that goes like that.
It is, and we've got quite a lot through here, just in the next room. So we've got 2 rooms here, Fred, that are covered in linen fold. I rather like this one with the cross design in there. It makes me think it may have produced the walls.
ornate, that really, isn't it?
It is,
linen fold panelling. Like, really, the reason it's called linen fold panelling is because it represents folded up linen, you know, in a way, or a cloth, you know, like your grandma did, you know, wrapped up nicely.
You're a man who works with your hands, Fred.
Oh, yeah.
How would you go about making something like that?
The timber in between all the folds would be done with like concave and convex moulding planes and sort of small grooving planes.
So you just groove the whole length and that's done in an instant.
And like the latest, that looks to me as though it could have been done same as masonry with an hammer and chisel, you know, because it's all a bit up and down-ish.
Right.
But that's the sort of effect to get it to look like folded up material.
I failed woodwork badly at school, so full of admiration for anybody who can do that.
Actually,
I bet you are.
Yeah. This is Henry VIII's bit, is it?
Well, this hall was rebuilt by Henry VIII on the site of Wolsey's. I'm researching that at the moment, and it seems almost certain that Wolsey's hall was actually longer, bigger by area.
Yeah.
So Henry rebuilt this from 1532 to 5, a few years after he'd taken the palace over.
Yeah, this wonderful hammer beam roof that's up above our heads here, you know. I always thought, you know, really, that it all came about because they couldn't get big trees, you know, but there's a little bit more to it than that, isn't there, really?
There is. Well, I'm sure basically that's right, that you're limited by the length of trunk that a tree will provide for a beam. And if you imagine spanning 40 feet like this, you'd need a beam of, you know, immense depth if you could
I've
find
seen that myself in industrial premises in Lancashire, you know, to get across here it would be maybe 2 feet deep by 9 inches thick with a queen post and 2 vertical posts, heavily braced up with iron rods to accomplish the same thing.
And if you imagine the feeling of lightness and space you want to get within this hall, if you have beams coming across, you've spoilt it already, I think. And Westminster Hall in the 1390s, they pioneered this technique of using a hammer beam and building it straight out from the wall, like a cantilever. So that can support then
another
vault,
like,
just over the central section of the roof. And so it's a very light construction. Looks like the underside of a ship, perhaps. And this is one of the latest, because Westminster was 1390s. This is 1530s. I think it's Henry VIII's best piece of building here, certainly.
In the Middle Ages, the roof construction, like hammer beam roofs and crook beam constructions, the main joint really in all of it were the mortise and tenon joint, which is basically an hole in one block of wood and a bit sawn on the end of the other that fits in the hole. And the tools needed to form such a joint are fairly simple. And even today, they must have been very similar in the Middle Ages, like a great big drill for drilling a series of holes in a straight line. And then, of course, a chisel and a hammer for joining all the round holes up into a rectangular shaped one. So we'll fix it together and see if it fits. This is an orange mortise and tenon joint on a grand scale. That goes in there like that. And then we've got this beam. The hole is slightly out of line, so when I knock this wooden peg in here, it'll have the effect of pulling the tenon down into the mortise hole. And of course, once we have knocked it in, we won't be able to get it out. So here goes. That feels very good and very tight. Now the next stage is to bash in the wooden wedges when I can find them. Here they are. One in there like that, and one in there like that. You know. That is a mortise and tenon joint on a grand scale, and that's how all the great roof trusses in Hampton Court would have been made They'd chop all that off after, you know, make it level. Nevertheless, it's so, you know, that's what they did do. Buildings never stayed the same. They changed as different owners extended them, added to them, or converted them. Hampton Court remained much as it was in Henry's day until William III came to the throne in 1689. William then commissioned Sir Christopher Wren to rebuild it, and it was Wren who added this baroque palace. There's lots of nice, interesting places to visit and lots of things going on all over the country. And if you're interested in more information, ring the number coming up or visit our website. Hampton Court was always a place to live, but some great houses didn't start off as houses at all. I went down to Laycock in Wiltshire to see one that's best known today as the home of a famous 19th century inventor. William Henry Fox Talbot was a great 19th century innovator who, of course, really were responsible for finding out more or less all we know today about photography. His family home, like a lot of big country houses, you know, started life off as a religious institution. Before the Reformation, this was a nunnery. Then after Henry VIII's dissolution of the monasteries, he sold it to a courtier named William Sherrington. A lot of courtiers and nobles like Sherrington bought monastic buildings that Henry had taken over, and the king made quite a lot of money out of it. When he bought this place, it consisted of a church and many large rooms that were cold and drafty that the nuns lived in. And at the time of the Reformation, when Henry was selling all these places to his noblemen and what have you, the great problem they had were making them so you could live in the places, you see. I mean, there were no central heating then. Things were a bit rough. I mean, in the whole nunnery, there were only one fireplace in a room called the warming room, which is next door, I believe. The answer for most of the people who purchased these places were to flatten the whole lot and use the material to build, you know, a new house with. It was, you know, easier than digging it out of a quarry. The thing is, Sherrington, he didn't. He left most of it and sort of built on top of it, as you might say. And I mean, that was a wonderful thing when he did that, because it preserved all these lovely arches and windows and niches and nice things, you know. This is what's known as the South Gallery, and of course the whole house is full of long, narrow passages which follow the line of the cloisters underneath and the bits with the groin roofs. All the lots like stuck on top of these passageways. In the days of the nuns, you know, the abbess was billeted down that end in her private quarters, and the nuns were up this end in the dormitory, and they were just a passageway then, you know, they just, you know, toed and froed in it. And basically the same when Sherrington lived here, but he'd had a tile floor. And then when Fox Talbot came, he put floorboards down and made these beautiful bay windows, and that bay window there is the very one where the first photograph was taken. This was in 1835, when the Industrial Revolution and British inventiveness was at its height. From Laycock, I went all the way up to Northumberland to see a house that was built by one of Victorian Britain's mightiest industrialists. The Industrial Revolution brought a great surge in house building, and the rich industrialists built wonderful mansions like this. This is Craigside in Northumberland, the home of the first Lord Armstrong, innovator, inventor, engineer and gunmaker. In the 19th century, he played a major role in the industrialisation of Tyneside, and his Elswick Works at Newcastle was the heart of a heavy engineering industrial empire, which manufactured cranes, hydraulic machinery and armaments. Built on a bare and rugged hillside, it was one of the most remarkable houses of its day. It had hot and cold running water, telephones, a fire alarm, an hydraulic lift, and the most magnificent thing, all the electricity was generated by an hydroelectric power station. No wonder they called it the Palace of the Modern Magician. The As well as building the house, Armstrong created a series of lakes in the grounds. He used these to store the water that provided the power to generate electricity and drive all the hydraulic machinery he installed in the house. Lord Armstrong did all he could to help his domestic staff with his hydraulic machinery. He had a lift for taking up the coal to the bedrooms, an hydraulic lift. And of course this wonderful spit here is driven by a water turbine that's quite a way off down in the cellar, and it works the complicated system of rods and bevel gears and universal joints. You know, you can actually move it away from the fire and move it into the fire, and of course it goes round, as you can see here, some barbecue, that, believe me. And the biggest back boiler I've ever seen, of course, for the domestic hot water. This is the dining room where he entertained such guests as the King of Siam and the Shah of Persia, who of course came here for arms dealing, you know, buy guns off him. As well as using his hydraulic machinery to help with the domestic chores, he also used it to impress prospective customers. I mean, the whole place really were a shop window for the inventions that, you know, he did. This, without a doubt, must be one of the finest Victorian domestic interiors in England. I mean, the ceiling alone, of course, there's a few good English oak trees gone into it. The fireplace is a wonderful creation, you know, it's got to be the biggest inglenook fireplace in England. The outer arch, Gothic arch, and the great stones going up have survived very well, but I think Sir William did a bit of overstoking, because there's a few nasty cracks in his mantelpiece proper. You can imagine him sat there on a cold and frosty night thinking of what he were going to do next with his hydraulics. This is the library, the other great Victorian room in the house. Sir William actually used it every day, you know, as his sitting room in a way. I mean, you can see he did a bit of letter writing over there. The other interesting things are the lamps on the shelves. Originally they were oil lamps, and of course Sir William had them converted to electricity, which came from a generator outside down in the grounds. Apparently Sir William's first attempt at electric lighting was quite an interesting thing. He actually had a vessel full of mercury, and you lowered the bit with the bulb on into the mercury by hand, you know, because there were no light switches then. And of course the thing's alive, you know. I don't know if he had rubber gloves on or what, but must have been a hell of a dodgy operation, you know, but evidently he worked on with his inventive mind and got it to this stage. It's interesting that a great industrialist like Armstrong, who was responsible for many major technological advances, chose this very traditional old English style of building for a house that he filled with modern inventions. Craigside was built to last, but what about the housing for people who worked in factories like Armstrong's? The coming of the railways meant that a standard range of building materials became readily available for low-cost workers' housing all around the country. But it's difficult to get an impression of what it was really like to live in them, because those that haven't been pulled down have all been modernised. To get some sense of what it was like, you need to come to a place like Beamish. If you want to see some houses where more ordinary people lived, you know, this is the place to come. This is Beamish up in the northeast near Newcastle on Tyne. And all this lovely old town behind me has been faithfully dismantled in other parts of the northeast and brought back here and re-erected in every minute detail, you know. Even though it's all brand new in a way, you know, the bricks are old and the window frames are old, but when you come here, you know, you get a lovely feeling of long ago, you know, it's quite interesting. This fine Georgian terrace, it's called Ravensworth Terrace, and it was taken down in Gateshead and brought back here and re-erected. Quite a lot of rows of houses in Bolton like this. It's so sad that during the last great conflict we had, They pinched all the railings off all these lovely Georgian and Victorian garden walls and melted them all down, you know. But here, they somehow or other, if they're not repros, they've survived, you know. Very nice indeed. And the lovely windows, Georgian windows, little panes of glass. I think being as it is, it's raining, I think I'll go in and see how Miss Smith's pianoforte lessons are going. You know, I'm off. I'll see you later. Good morning.
Good morning.
Rather a splendid parlour you've got here, eh?
It's very nice.
Yeah, it's like a bit of a cut above the others, isn't it? With the semicircular arches and the... I've got a fireplace like that at home in one of my bedrooms. Yeah, it's about 1850, I would think, that thing was made. And all, and the lovely sash windows with the panelling and the shutters and everything. Like, not very long later on, you know, they made rooms similar in proportion, but they lack the Cornish moulding and even skirting boards at turn of century in like rough worker type houses. You know, this is quite posh. Next door to the music teacher is the dentist house, and he must have been a bit well-to-do because he could afford a servant. Good morning. This is a bit like home from home for me, this. Like, really, the Victorian cast iron fire grate is like the centre of the household. You know, everything happened here. The bread were baked and all the boiling water come out, and it dried all the clothes on the rail here. From like about 1900 onwards, if you didn't have a lot of money, and you buy a terraced house, you know, like the type in Coronation Street, the bedrooms were barren, just a square box. And the only form of lighting were one single gas bracket, nearly always screwed to the corner of the chimney breast, or quite often, I never worked this out, at the side of a window frame. Don't know why, you know, side of where all the light does come in, you know, the gas bracket were there. Just like down in town here at Beamish, they've created a complete pit village, complete with the winding engine and engine house, the headgear, the screens, the village school, and a beautiful row of pitmen's cottages. And of course, behind me, the Methodist chapel. That means no drinking, you know. And next week, we'll be visiting some much grander churches as we look at places of worship. And don't forget the number if you want more information on some of the interesting places you can visit.